Many thanks for staying with us on the program. This is still Village Square Africa. Now we are going into the agreement signed between the government of Nigeria and that of the United Arab Emirates. President Tinubu has successfully negotiated a joint new foreign exchange liquidity program between both governments, which will soon be revealed. But on top of that, they have finalized a historic agreement which has resulted in the immediate cessation of the visa ban placed on Nigerian travelers. Now, this has also put an end to the strained bilateral relations between Nigeria and the United Arab Emirates. We'll take a look at this very quickly while we wait for our guest, Nweke, a global affairs analyst in Brussels, Belgium. But in the meantime, the details of this agreement has not yet been revealed. And we're hoping, because Nigeria is now putting into account accountability and making things transparent for Nigerians, we're going to have the details very shortly. But in the meantime, we're now joined by our guest, Nweke, a global affairs analyst. Thank you so much, Collins, for joining us on the program.
It's a pleasure, Blessing. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure having you on the show as well. Collins, now we would call this agreement a very remarkable one. And a lot of people are asking, how exactly was the president able to achieve this, looking at how the relationship between the United Arab Emirates and Nigeria has been strained for a long time? How were we able to achieve this feat?
You were right, Blessings, when you started off by saying that details of the deals, are still sketchy. They are emerging. And so I think it's, proper to, view this with cautious optimism because what we are hearing is essentially from one source, and that is the Nigerian source, the government of Nigeria. If you go to the website of UAE, not the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and not, their news agency, you don't find this news. So it could very well be that Nigeria is actually owning the news, telling the story themselves, as opposed to, letting other people tell the story, and by doing so, somehow creating some distortion. So let's go with what we have in our hands, which is that there is a deal that is going to lead to, ending of the visa ban on Nigerians, and then also resumption, consequently, of, flights from Nigeria to UAE. That's a very good news. How did President Tinubu achieve this? Well, one will only imagine, it is logical, that when President Buhari before him made the first singular attempt that is known to the public, when he put up a call directly to the president of UAE, and he appeared to have been turned down because nothing happened. We're talking of something that happened some 10 months ago. Now, I do not believe that Nigeria sat still since then. No. I believe that, diplomatic, back channels would have been open and conversation, continued negotiations and all of that. It could then very well be that considering his, policy objective, President Tinubu actually prioritized this. And, what better than using the, occasion of the G20 meeting to actually, get his counterparts to sit down on the table and then actually close the deal. So while it was President Tinubu that closed the deal, I think it's important also to acknowledge that he had no magic wand that he waved and then everything, happened. No, I think, negotiation had been ongoing since the last 10 months, and, he then stepped in to close it up.
Okay, now we know that the details of this deal has not been revealed yet, but the curiosity is heightened. Now, one might wonder, we understand that bilateral systems and bilateral relationships run a subtle kind of barter system where you give me something, I give you something in return. Now we're getting, a lifting of the visa ban, and we're getting millions of dollars or billions in investment in different sectors across board. Talk about agriculture, talk about defense and all that. And, it will just leave you wondering, if we're getting a 14 billion naira worth of investment pledge from the United Arab Emirates, there has to be a catch. What exactly are we given in return? Like I said, the details are not have not been revealed yet. But from your own speculations, what do you think Nigeria has to offer that warrants that much investment pledge?
For a start, Blessings, it is important to note that business, trade, is at the heart of, the issue that we're discussing. So, which means that when UAE, Emirates Flight and Riyadh, when they carry Nigerians, they do not carry them for free. As a matter of fact, they are part of the club that charge Nigerians humongous, flight fees, to get there. So obviously, they would have been suffering some very terrible losses, since the past 10 months. That's number one. Number two, if there were people smiling about the disagreement that led to the ban, definitely it would have been the competitors of Emirates Airlines, because what it meant was that Nigerians, continued to travel, but they weren't traveling with Emirates. So that was loss of business for them. So somehow that would have put them under, some pressure as well. Now, I do not know what other things may have happened in terms of, the actual offer that Nigeria has made to them. I do not want to speculate about that, but I can actually speak only to what is, pretty obvious to the eyes and, logical as well, which is that it is in their commercial interest to end this, travel ban, which is the visa ban, but also resume their flight, because they are losing millions and millions of, dollars on a weekly basis.
Okay, this agreement seems to be a good start. Now, seeing that this administration was able to pull this off, are we then expecting a replication with other countries that we probably have some strained relationships with?
It is to be expected. You and I, talked about this in the run-up to the election in terms of, how the business community, the international business community, is perceiving Nigeria in terms of the upcoming election, who they are going to favor or not favor. And the point I made then, and I'm still making now, is that out of the three leading candidates, who were, contested for the presidential election, none of them could be said not to have a strong business credential. And so that, actually created some sort of, assurances for the investment community. And so, President Tinubu has come on board as the businessman he is, an accountant by training. He talks business, and when he talks, they listen because he knows the approach. And another very important thing to underline here is the fact that if you have noticed, his style is completely different from that of President Buhari, because he is a bit more measured, much more diplomatic, and you wouldn't hear him, because this is important. You wouldn't hear him disparaging Nigerians, even those that carried out, cultist activities. He phrased it in a manner that is diplomatic, which is that you can have children, sons and daughters, that are actually, straying, but that doesn't mean that you stop talking to them. Rather than going out there telling the world that, Nigerians are bad people, and when they misbehave, you deal with them like we saw in the last administration, and not only the president talking about it, also, some heads of agencies, told that line. In Tinubu's case, we haven't seen that, and we're not going to see that, because that is not the kind of man he is. These are little bits and pieces of approaches that actually, make things easier for Nigerians in terms of replicating this sort of deal with countries that had, or still have strayed strained relationship with Nigeria. So yes, we are set to see more of this happening.
Okay, now some analysts have sort of criticized the government, not just because they're pursuing a foreign direct investment, because I mean, every country needs that. But according to these people, they're saying that we don't have our house in order yet, and that is in terms of our own policies. And instead of us, focusing on our policies while we look for these investments, we're just dumping everything, every problem that we're facing in the country right now to chase after foreign direct investment. What does that have to do with the other?
Well, in some quarters, you could consider that to be a fair assessment. But on the other hand, we have to look at it from the point of view of, both of them being compatible. I mean, in terms of pursuing our domestic policies as well as international, policies, international politics. I mean, you don't dump one, for the other. Now, I do not know the extent to which it could really be said that, not enough focus is being placed on domestic issues. It could very well be that people see the focus of the administration differently from, the other, but at least they appear to be doing something. For instance, we heard recently about, an emerging CBN policy that will redenominate Nigerian currency to, give it more, to give people more confidence in it, and a number of other things. Yes, it can always be better, but I do not subscribe to the idea of focusing only on domestic matters, and then forgetting international affairs, because Nigeria cannot live as an island. You need to relate with others, because ultimately the impact or the deliverables from such, international relations actually now trickle down to Nigeria, in terms of domestic affairs.
Okay, Collins, now some people have also argued that based on precedents, these foreign direct investments doesn't exactly cover all of our problems. For example, the foreign direct investments will not still create enough employment opportunities. And again, back to the issue of policy, it doesn't exactly solve our entire problem. Is it favorable to these investors, if they're investing in us and there's no change, or is it favorable to us as Nigerians if we're getting these investments and we're still not seeing, the rapid change or growth that we're expecting?
Very important remark you made there, Blessings, because, if you look at the investment portfolios coming into Nigeria, they completely exclude long-term investment. And that is simply because business people hesitate to invest in a volatile economy. In an economy that they can look at and say, okay, in the next 5 years, this is my growth plan. In the next 10 years, in the next 2 decades. In Nigeria, because of the volatility of the politics, the economy, and all of that, people only, go for short-term investment. And in the long run, that isn't very good for Nigeria as a country, even though you can't discountenance completely its, value to the economy. So yes, it is of critical importance that Nigeria's governance architecture is looked at, holistically, and not only that the government is doing something to strengthen it, but they need to be seen to be doing something. For instance, the election tribunal that just delivered its verdict all across the world. People are studying it to see the extent to which it could be considered to be an independent verdict. So that is work in progress, and I think it is very, very critical that if Nigeria really want to get it right, attract the long-term investment that will ultimately create jobs in Nigeria, they need to step up on the issues around getting our politics right and come up with good economic policy. But I mean, if you don't get one and you get the other, you can't, say that you haven't had a pass mark. So the economic policies that are being, churned out are not entirely bad. And so the government needs to be encouraged to do more around, domestic politics and getting it right.
All right, Collins, I always like for us to circle back to the issue of accountability because there's nothing the government is doing that the people are not entitled to knowing about. So again, will Nigerians be informed about this process or this investment deals when it comes? I know that they're saying that, it's not out in the open yet, but when it is eventually, will Nigerians be let in on what's happening? Or is it just going to be another situation of, this is going on, we're handling it, and then the changes will reflect and you don't have to worry about the details?
When they tell you that the details are not there, we're not revealing them yet, it is simply because they haven't got any details. Now, when you prefaced your statement before, you were deliberate, I imagine, when you actually said that that these are commitments. Now, commitments are no real deals, not yet. When there is a memorandum of understanding, a memorandum of understanding is not, a committed agreement where you can take one to court for not honoring his own side. It is a declaration of intention, and that is what we have now. And when I said that it is important for Nigerians to take this with cautious optimism, that was exactly what I meant, because you cannot, begin to roll out the drum and begin to, sing and dance when, not one, naira, one or kobo, as a matter of fact, has actually been plugged into the Nigerian economy. So essentially, I believe that when the details are out and they are sure of those details, yes, of course, the government will be very, very pleased. They will actually be on the demand side of flaunting it everywhere, informing those of you who were in the press so that you know about it. But as long as that is not happening, that simply tells you that they haven't got nothing beyond words, beyond declaration of good intentions.
Okay, then, let's hope that that's the case. Collins, now, personally, what do you hope that we achieve as a country, as a nation, from these deals that we're signing with the UAE? Very quickly.
Number one, increase, FDI, flow of foreign direct investment into Nigeria. Number two, one will hope that when that happens, it will be, it will play into that long-term, strategy of turning Nigeria around from a consumption economy to a production economy, whereby people from the UAE are encouraged to come and set up production activities in Nigeria rather than encouraging only tourism. Because at the end of the day, this resumption of flight means nothing to the average Nigerian who will never, fly Emirates or the other airline. It will continue to favor only those who actually cut away Nigeria's commonwealth and go to deposit them in the UAE safe haven. So that is not what Nigeria should be all about. They should be all about encouraging production activities in Nigeria, so that ultimately that will impact positively on the economy and create jobs.
All right, Collins Nweke, thank you so much for your time with us on the show today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Blessings.
It's a pleasure. Well, here's where we call it a wrap on Village Square Africa with me, Blessings Mosugu. Stay still because after now, the news continues. We'll see you shortly.